World War II brings to mind tanks, bombers, beach landings, and generals staring at maps, but one of America's strangest weapons looked more like a traveling theater troupe with air pumps. The Ghost Army was a top secret unit of artists, sound engineers, radio operators, actors, designers, and clever military planners who were sent across Europe to fool Hitler's forces with fake tanks, phony radio traffic, loudspeakers, false patches, and staged conversations in local cafes. They could make 1,100 men appear to be 30,000, and they did it close enough to the front lines that one bad guess could get them killed. Before we start, drop a comment below. Tell us, if you were a German scout in 1944, do you think you would have fallen for an army made of rubber, speakers, and pure nerve? This is the story of the American Ghost Army that fooled Hitler during World War II. The Art of War.
I was in the rubber army, as I called it.
The rubber army?
Yeah, the inflatable army.
The Ghost Army was officially known as the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops. That name sounds about as exciting as a filing cabinet, which was partly the point. Behind that dull title was one of the most unusual units in American military history. It was activated in January 1944, just months before D-Day, and built for deception. The Army wanted a unit that could move quickly, create battlefield illusions, and convince German intelligence that large American formations were gathering where they were not. The men chosen for the job were not the usual image of hardened combat troops. Many came from art schools, advertising, radio, theater, architecture, and design. Some were painters, some understood sound, some could sketch a tank, build a prop, or improvise a believable lie under pressure. Their job was not to destroy the enemy directly. Their job was to make the enemy waste shells, move troops, guard the wrong road, or stare at the wrong field. In a war where information could be as powerful as artillery, these men turned imagination into camouflage. Rubber tanks.
We had one incident where two Frenchmen saw a tank being lifted by two men and moved. They turned to me and they said, "How can two men lift a tank?" So I said, "You know, the Americans are very strong." And that seemed to satisfy them.
The Ghost Army's most famous trick was visual deception. They used inflatable tanks, trucks, artillery pieces, jeeps, and aircraft. From far away, especially from the air, those rubber decoys could look like real military equipment. The tanks were light enough for a few men to carry, then inflate with air compressors. Once placed in fields or along roads, they were arranged like real armored units. The artists added details and shadows to make them more convincing. Of course, the deception was not perfect up close. A German soldier standing next to one might have noticed something was off, but these displays were not meant for close inspection. They were meant for aerial reconnaissance, distant observers, intercepted reports, and nervous commanders trying to understand what the Allies were doing. The unit created fake command posts, dummy artillery positions, pretend motor pools, and camps that suggested a massive force had arrived. They even added little human details because war is full of habits. A few tents, some vehicle tracks, and the appearance of activity could sell the illusion. Radio ghosts. The Ghost Army didn't rely on props alone. Their radio operators created fake traffic that sounded like real divisions moving into position. This mattered because German intelligence listened carefully for Allied communications. The clever part was that the operators did not just send random messages. They learned how real radio men communicated, including their rhythms, mistakes, and personal styles. That made the fake transmissions more believable. If a real unit moved away, the Ghost Army could imitate it on the radio and make the Germans think it was still there. Meanwhile, the actual unit might be heading somewhere else entirely. It was like leaving a voice behind while the body slipped out the door. Sound was another weapon. Engineers used huge speakers to play recordings of tanks rumbling, troops moving, bridges being built, and men shouting orders. In some cases, those sounds could travel for miles. To a German patrol in the dark, that noise could suggest an entire armored force was nearby. The Roadshow.
They brought a variety of skills with them. They were recruited from art schools, music schools, and architecture schools in New York City and elsewhere.
One Ghost Army veteran described the unit as a traveling roadshow, and that description fits. They moved from place to place, staged an illusion, packed up, and did it again. Their performances took place in fields, villages, forests, and dangerous frontline areas. After D-Day, members of the unit began operating in France. Some came ashore after the Normandy landings and created dummy artillery placements that drew German attention. It was dangerous work because the whole point was to be noticed. During operations around Brest, the Ghost Army used dummy tanks and sound trucks to mislead the Germans about American strength and movement. Later, during Patton's drive across France, they helped cover gaps and confuse enemy observers. One of their riskiest jobs came near Metz in September 1944. Patton's line had a dangerous opening, and the Ghost Army helped hold the illusion of strength until real troops could arrive. For days, they played the part of a larger force with inflatables, sound effects, radio traffic, and sheer confidence. The Rhine Trick.
We were sitting on the other side of the Rhine from the Germans, waving at the Germans and saying, "Hey, here I am, shoot at me."
The Ghost Army's biggest performance came in March 1945 during Operation Viersen. The real U.S. Ninth Army was preparing to cross the Rhine River, one of the final major barriers into Germany. Crossing the Rhine was dangerous. If the Germans knew where the attack was coming, they could concentrate fire and troops at the crossing point. So the Ghost Army set up about 10 miles away from the real operation and pretended to be a much larger force preparing its own crossing. They impersonated two divisions, suggesting tens of thousands of troops were gathering. They used hundreds of dummy vehicles and equipment pieces, fake headquarters, false unit markings, radio deception, and sound effects of bridge construction and military movement. They also leaned into old-fashioned human gossip. Men wore counterfeit shoulder patches and talked loudly in places where spies or informants might hear them. The whole thing worked like a stage production, except the audience had artillery. Secrets and recognition.
This is just like so out of left field. You know, you want to preserve that. You want to preserve that quirkiness, and so that people understand the kind of the full range of what World War II really involved.
For decades after the war, the Ghost Army story stayed mostly hidden. The men came home, built civilian lives, and often kept quiet, even with their own families. Secrecy had followed them off the battlefield. Many returned to careers that made perfect sense in hindsight. Some went into advertising, art, architecture, fashion, photography, theater, and radio. Bill Blass became a famous fashion designer. Ellsworth Kelly became a major American artist. Art Kane became a noted photographer. Military estimates have credited the Ghost Army with saving thousands of American lives. The exact number is hard to prove because deception works best when it changes what the enemy does without leaving a neat receipt behind. Still, their missions clearly pulled German attention, firepower, and manpower away from real Allied movements. The unit's work was officially declassified in the 90s, and many years later, the Ghost Army received the Congressional Gold Medal. It was late, but fitting. These men fought with canvas, rubber, radios, sound, acting, and nerve. In a war remembered for brute force, they proved that sometimes the strangest weapon on the battlefield is a convincing lie. Now it's time to hear from you. If you'd been serving in the Ghost Army, which part of the deception do you think you could have handled best? Painting fake tanks, running radio tricks, blasting sound effects, or acting out false information in public? Let us know in the comments section below.